Hiya! I'm Lily, and I'm taking a short little break from my very busy holiday week because not that I'm doing anything for Thanksgiving, but this Saturday I'm hosting a party and for like my friends and stuff who are in town and whatnot. And part of that is cleaning out our living room. My family is how do I put this? Not a tidy bunch, so I've been slammed getting through all this. So yeah, I'm sorry for the low amount of video this week, but I figured I'd get at least one out. And today, I'm actually finally going to be doing the Throne of Eldraine set review for Commander Cube. I was kind of super depressed when Throne of Eldraine came out, so I didn't get my normal like Throne of Eldraine videos out. But here we are. This is my review for Commander Cube, and like the last few Commander Cube videos, like I'm doing a very different format. I'm not doing like a top 10 list. I'm kind of like doing something a bit more abstract, I guess. And you know what, eventually I'll find a format that I like, but for now, this is what you get. So yeah, take that, suckers. Well, so yeah, so for those of you who are not aware, awareness is quite higher after it was featured recently on game nights. Commander Cube is a format where you draft you're drafting a commander deck at the end of it. So it's, and there's many different variations of how it's actually constructed. Mine, you actually are building a full 100-card deck, edited by commanders and stuff like that. But there's a lot of variations. So honestly, in terms of reviewing for it, it is very cube specific which ones are good. Like things like tribal cards are honestly atrocious in most Commander Cubes, but they're actually decent in mine because I have the Tales and Poems system. As always, if you want to check out my cube info, I will put the link in the description to the full info on my cube if you want to see how I put it together. Also, one day I will actually finish the my full set of how do you say that? My actual written version of my series on how to build your first Commander Cube and stuff like that. So yeah. Well, so without further ado, let us jump right into the thing. And the first thing I'm just gonna talk about is just like very high level, and it's gonna be talking about the mechanics from Throne of Eldraine. You don't like that. Alright, so first up we got not trail crumbs, but food. Food is mechanic. That essentially, there's many things that make food that essentially you can pay 2 mana and sacrifice it to gain 3 life. And on its own, food is very medium. Like, you don't really want it if you're just gaining the life. But food has been very prominent and standard because it has like a lot of cool things you're doing with it. But most of the things is where food gets good is the alternate ways to sacrifice it. Cards like Trail of Crumbs, things like Wicked Wolf, and generally things that just don't work well in Cube because you need very specific cards to make it work. It's like food isn't strictly a parasitic mechanic because any deck can use food, but for food to be anywhere like good for a Commander Cube, you just need very specific cards, and you can't rely on having very specific cards. And yeah, there's like, and even then, like the cards that just incidentally make food, most of them aren't great for Commander Cube, except for like one LP boy that we all know and love. Yeah, most of them aren't good. So it's just like food is just way too specific for what we're really wanting to be doing. Like I'll probably make a tale in my cube for it, but it's really not something that most Commander Cubes really want to be using that much. The next one was Adamant, which essentially is these instant sorceries that are, actually all stuff. These cards that essentially, if you spend at least 3 mana of that card's color, you get an extra benefit when you are casting that card. And this isn't kind of like the food where it's kind of like, okay, mechanic aside, none of the cards with this mechanic are really that great for Commander Cube, so you're not really going your way from. But the thing is that kind of this Eldraine does kind of push monocolor in a bit, and we'll probably see that in Theros too. But one of the parts of the nature of Commander Cube is that most often you are running 2, 3 plus color decks, and monocolor is really hard to pull off. Like, granted, 3 of one type, especially when you do the late game, you have lots of mana. Like, instantly having 3 of the type isn't impossible, but it kind of comes back to, it's like, not really the Animate cards. It's like, Adam is just this tack on the cards, and it's really, they're fine. Like, it's fine as a mechanic, but it's nothing insane. It's just suffers from the fact that none of the cards are good for the format. Next one is Adventures, which, again, it's one of those things where it's like, if an adventure is good, and there are good adventures on like food and Adamant cards for Commander Cube, things like Murderous Rider and stuff like that. But I think it's like, you also, for the same reason of food, you don't necessarily want the adventure payoff. So you're not running like Lucky Clover in your cube or Edgewall Innkeeper, just because you're not really using them. And even then, I don't think there's enough good stuff for adventures to really make it work in Commander Cube either. Just because it's like, the difference between the good adventures and the very not good adventures is like very high. It's like Murderous Rider, very good. Brazen Borrower, it's okay, but it's still it's decently solid. And you have like Silverwine's Flame Squire, which is like, you don't want to run this whatsoever. So it's kind of like, it's very card specific, and the mechanic itself doesn't, it's like a neat mechanic, because it is essentially kind of like a split card in some ways, and that flexibility is nice, but for the most part, it varies card by card. Another one of the mechanics, but like main hallmarks, is Night Tribal in this set. But the thing is that, like almost all tribal stuff, you're not really want to be running Night Tribal stuff in your cube. Like, some generic things like are fine if they're like, if they support themselves, but really I don't like tribal cards unless it's a much more widespread tribe like humans, and even then it's just like, unless you're going for a very tribal feel of your deck and you're really going hard on like, we're going to make Knights a thing, which Knights is getting there. That you could theoretically have enough pieces in there, but generally you're not going to be running most of the Night Tribal pieces in your inner cube. And then finally is it's less of a mechanic, more of a cycle, but there's a cycle of stuff in the Brawl Precon exclusive cards that are essentially, it's caring about the number of opponents you have, and that is a mechanic which is made for multi-fire formats, is very good. Like, honestly, if not for the Brawl Precons, Eldraine would be a very, very medium set, but it had a lot of cool things for the Brawl Precons that really kind of like really shine, and most of the Brawl Precon cards are actually real solid to look at. Later on, I actually don't touch on the Brawl Precon ones, just because it's, otherwise most of the list of like spotlight cards would be the Brawl Precon cards, but generally they are all, most of them are pretty solid. Like the food ones, not great, but the rest of them are just like, yeah, I'll run any of these into the cube, and they're justifiable to put in there. Right. So next we're just going to do a quick run through the commanders. This is actually going to be pretty fast, mostly because most of them are monocolor. And really, when you're looking at like what legendary creatures you want to add to your cube, monocolor ones you might as well treat as not being legendary creatures, because realistically people aren't going to be playing monocolor decks, and you really need to look at them from the perspective of, is this going to be decent in the 99, and kind of work it from there. So first we got Linden, and this is the rare cycle of like nobles, or the rulers that are in kingdoms in the realm. They all care about their specific color. Now, coming back to my prior point about Commander Cube is very often you're playing like 2, 3+ colors. Like, it's not like you're running a Linden commander deck where all your creatures are white creatures to gain life every time they attack. you might have some of your creatures being white creatures, and this cycle is not great. Like, London is fine, like, especially if you're running, like, if your cube is very much focused on a 2-color cube, or it's like you're pushing those 2 colors. But if your cube is pushing for anything that's like 3+ colors, she's not gonna be worth it, just because she's such a minor effect. She is such a punishing mana cost to cast, and yeah, it's just, she isn't quite there and doesn't really do all that much for what you really want to have as a piece in your deck. Like, even life gain decks don't really want this. Next we have the uncommon cycle of legendary creatures, and these are all bad. Okay, almost all of them are bad. Sir Alan the Lion's Claw is a 5-mana 4/4 for the first strike that pumps all your team whenever he attacks. No, it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I like that they're printing more legendaries, but part of that is you're gonna get like some uncommon legendaries that just aren't good. That said, I like the legendary to help make it more flavor and make the world feel more fleshed out and whatnot. But Sir Alan is just like, you can get so much better effects for this. Like, granted, like, if you're going for low budget and like you have like a lightweight token theme or something like that, yeah, maybe, but you're really not looking for it, going out of your way for it. Imri, Lurker the Lock. There's a few legends that are outside of any, like, the 2 cycles, and Imri is one of them, with the 3-mana 1/2 that costs 1 less for each artifact you control. Notably, in normal EDH, this gets around commander attacks, but realistically, you're not playing Imri as your commander. She mills 4 when you enter the battlefield, and you can tap her to choose an artifact in your graveyard, and you can recast it. And honestly, as a piece in like a artifact, if you have an artifact theme in your cube, this is a real solid piece of that, because, I mean, it's a powerful piece of recursion, but your opponents have a time to react to it, so you can't give her haste and stuff like that, so she is somewhat vulnerable, but can be quite powerful, and really, I think she's a decent card, a non-artifact card for those artifact-style decks, and could definitely go in there. But you're definitely evaluating her from a perspective of, in the 99, not as a commander. Next we have Gadwick the Wizened, which is X blue 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 for a 3/3, and then when he enters the battlefield, you draw X cards, and if you cast a blue spell, you may tap target non-land permanent and opponent's controls. I mean, the tap thing will incidentally be useful, but mostly you're using this as kind of like a fancy draw X spell, and generally those are actually perfectly fine to use in a cube, so I don't mind Gadwick at all. And obviously it also gives decent with things like bounce your hand effects and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I don't mind Gadwick whatsoever. It's like, it's just gonna be a blue X draw spell, and also just coming with a 3/3 body is not bad, just because more so a normal commander, like I say, Commander Cube is very much settled in the combat step, and 3/3 isn't great, but it's not nothing, and blue getting to staple 3/3 body onto their draw spell is something that they don't mind having. Next up we have Sir Eleonora the Discerning, which is a 5-mana X4, who is power equal to the number of cards in your hand, and when she enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and spells that target her cost 2 more to cast. She's awful. She cycles herself, but you're not really running her in this. Just don't run her. I'm sorry, but just don't. Ayara, First of Luckthwain. Black, black, black for 2/3. And whenever she or another black creature you controls enters the battlefield, it drains each opponent for 1. I mean, well, they lose 1 life and you gain 1 life. It's not like the old-fashioned drain where you got all the life that was drained. And you may tap her, sacrifice another black creature to draw a card. Now, this is one where it's like, yes, you do want a critical mass of black creatures, but really, like, if you're having a 2-color, like aiming for 2 colors, this is fine. Also, just like, because black is all more about recursion and stuff like that, And the fact that she also has the utility to like start sacrificing like zombie tokens or whatever that you have, it just seems she could be passable. That said, if your cube is worth focusing on, like my cube focuses on 3 and 4 colors, I'm not super thrilled on her just because the number of black cards you're going to be running is not that much. And she is still very restricted to cast, just like the rest of her cycle. Next we have Rankle, Master of the Prankle, which is 2 black, 3/3 for a flying haste. And whenever he deals combat damage to a player, choose any number. Each player discards a card, each player loses 1 life and draws a card, and each player sacrifices a creature. This is a fantastic card in just both generic control decks and discard tribal decks. If you're hell, if you have like a kind of like a Nekusar type something, and sacrifice decks, like it's just generally good on its own, and it kind of slots into all those different decks, which is kind of one of those things that I like. That I've mentioned this before, I think, but generally, it's one thing to just get a good card where yeah, it's exciting to be like, oh wow, I was able to pick up like just a real solid card like a Worn Power Stone or something for my deck, like in the middle of a pack, and it's like, yeah, that's solid and it feels nice. But generally when you're drafting in that play experience, it feels a lot better to get something that like it fits your theme specifically. And Rankle's nice because while he doesn't actually like require to be in a specific theme, he fits like the theme of like 3 specific decks very well. And they can all have that feeling of like, Rankle matches what my deck is supposed to be doing. It matches kind of this thing that I'm trying to do with my deck. And really, that's kind of what you want, where Rankle is both powerful and fills that niche, but also he's not restricted because he's still solid outside of that niche. So I think that makes sense. Where it's someone drafting it somewhat can feel like somewhat cleverer about, and like being like, yes, I got there, I have this cool synergy, even though it's just a generically good card. So there isn't that like pitfall of like having the very narrow card for that strategy in the cube. That said, I think those narrow cards still should be in the cube, but you can't overdo it, and Rankle's a good middle ground for that. Next we have Sir Conrad the Grim, which is the 5-mana 5/4. And whenever another creature dies, and a creature is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature control the card leaves your battlefield, leaves your graveyard, sorry, he deals 1 damage to each opponent, and he can pay 1 and a black to have each player mill 1. I mean, he's kind of like a Blood Arts effect, and really, like, sacrificing aristocrats is one of those easiest, like, archetypes to put in your cube, and Sir Conrad's just a real solid piece in that. Yeah, he's a little expensive at 5 mana, but he really does a bit of everything for that, and has that built-in, like, mill stuff to help fill your own graveyard, which black often wants to be doing. So I really like Sir Conrad, just because honestly, of all the monocolor legends, like I think he's one of the cooler ones. Just kind of what it's doing. It's unfortunate it doesn't gain you life for that too, but it's fine. It hits all your opponents, which is nice, and yeah, I think Sir Conrad is fantastic. Next we have Sir Kara the Bold, which is it's a 5-mana 3/3. Whenever she or an instant or sorcery deals damage to a player, exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. And she may tap and do 1 damage to any target. She's card advantage in red, and she's also pinker. It's like, she doesn't just hit players who puts anything. And really, while not fantastic, she's solid. And yeah, like especially if you are going for like a 2-color theme for your deck, or your cube, and things like Boros and Gruul and stuff need card advantage engines, and she's a way to give kind of a red card advantage and kind of fill those like, okay, what card advantage are we giving to red? And while not one of the best ways, she is still solid, while also being kind of that like picking off small creatures removal that is actually surprisingly relevant. Next we have Torbrand, Thane of Redfell, which is 1 red for a 2/4, And if a red sorcery control would deal 2 damage to an opponent or permanent opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead. It's the same problem as with Linden and Ayara, where it's like, yeah, if we're running a 2-color cube, sure, but realistically it's not that great. In multiplayer, Torbrand isn't as like a threat as in like 1v1 brawl right now, because it just isn't going to get you under you that quickly, and even then you really want it to be monocolor, and it's fine. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, there'll be like times in your legend, like your commander synergizes with him, but generally you're not really wanting to run Torbrand. Next we have a Questing Beast, which is 2 green for 4/4 with Vigilance, Death, and Haste. It can't be blocked with powers 2 or less. Common damage, and whenever it deals common damage to a player, it deals that much damage to a target planeswalker that player controls. This card is a lot of text. It's a good card. I think it's a perfect conclusion in the cube, if you happen to have one, just because it's just a solid, like, green brick that hits the board and hits immediately. It's a great blocker because it's Death Touch, it threatens planeswalkers, it has evasion. It does everything that a green creature wants. But yeah, no. Again, like, it's one of those things where it's like, this one's also like, it wouldn't be exciting as a commander, but is perfectly fine, and you're happy to have in kind of the bulk. That said, it is like kind of the opposite of Wrinkle in that it's just a generically good creature and isn't that exciting. Like, it's like, oh, look, I have a Questing Beast. Sure, I'll slot that in, and it'll be good, and it'll be solid, but, yeah, no, that's about where I'm at on it. Sir Farron, the Hengehammer, which is green for a 2/2. Whenever it attacks, target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is his power. No. Just no. No. It's just such a minimal effect. It's such a minimal effect, it just does not do enough. Yeah, like, if you build around him, you can make him, like, be decent, but the fact is that so many of these, like, uncommon ones that, like, look to be very low power level require very specific focused decks, and that's just not what you're doing in Commander, so it's like, no, I'm going to say a solid no to Sir Farron. And next we have Yorvo, Lord of Garenbrig, which is green at enters battlefield 4+1 counters. Whenever a green creature in his battlefield, put a counter on him, and if it's bigger than him, put 2. Again, it's just way too narrow. And even then, that effect isn't worth going for, unlike the other, like, Ayara, Torbrand, and Linden. It's just like, you just get a big dumb dude. And really, you want more than just a big dumb dude. Like, yeah, it has, like, some synergies of counter stuff, but realistically, sorry, Yorvo, but that's gonna be a no from me. Next we have a Grumgully, the Generous, which is 1 red-green for a 3/3. Each creature, non-human creature you control, enters battlefield with additional +1/+1 counter on it. So, Tribal isn't good in Commander Cube, outside of building your cube to accommodate it. That's it. Anti-Tribal works perfectly fine. Like, Grumgully I think is great. Like, it's great in the 99 of counter decks. And it's also just good in just general kind of, like, if you're playing, like, I don't know, like any sort of, like, red-green or red-green plus stompy deck. And at the end of the day, he's fine as a commander. Like, it is a gold card, so it has potential to be a commander. And he's fine, but honestly, it's just real, like, it's not an impressive effect, but it is an effect that is mechanically relevant, and it just increases your board presence on a relatively cheap commander, and honestly, that's often enough. And if you just want to look for, like, some, like, cheap commanders like this to help fill out your curve and stuff, or fill out your respective commanders, Grumgully is real solid. Next up we have the Buy a Box promo in the form of Kinrith the Pretend King, who does a lot. He's a 5-mana 5/5 which is red. All creatures gain trample and hasten on the turn. 1 in green, put a +1 counter on target creature. 2 in a white, target player gains 5 life. 3 in a blue, target player draws a card. And 4 in a black, put target creature from a graveyard onto the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's kind of like this like group hug politics, but really at the end of the day, it's a 5-color just value commander, and 5-color value commanders are fantastic in Commander Cube. Like, there's very few 5-color commanders that aren't good for Commander Cube. Like, unless you're looking at like a Tog, they're real solid. So I actually think like Kinrith is fantastic. So I'm gonna give 2 thumbs up to Kinrith, and is honestly I think one of the best commanders to include in a Commander Cube from this whole set, including the Brawl commanders. Just because 5-color commanders are very sought after, and yes, he's kind of generic, but he allows your player to kind of do whatever they want. He's kind of a build your own deck from like he could lead any deck and probably be perfectly fine at it. Next up to the Brawl Precon commanders. First up we have Alela, Artful Provocateur. 4 mana, 2/3, and Esper. Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. And whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. I think Alela is fantastic because she has like some very narrow things that she wants to do, but she is a great body. 3 colors, like most 3-color commanders, like it's hard to pass. Like a 3-color commander has to be very bad before you stop looking at it. Just to being the thing, because just like having 3 colors is extremely real solid. But she cares about having creatures flying and casting artifacts and enchantments. Those are like 3 kind of archetypes that she kind of supports, and kind of a lot of the times what happens in Commander Cube is that you don't really build necessarily a pure deck a lot of the time. You're kind of like, you have several ideas that come together into some mishmash of deck, and Alela's nice because she is these few ideas of a mishmash of a deck and can kind of like mechanically tie it all together. So I think Alela is fantastic, and is honestly a close second with Kinrith for one of the best commanders of this cube. For Commander Cube in general, in my opinion, for the set. Eldraine, Teller of Tales. 2 in Beant for a 2/4 with Vigilance. Whenever you cast a creature's card, you draw a card, and you may put a land from your hand on the battlefield. And you pay 3, tap him to return a card to a creature you control to its owner's hand. Again, just like this one's just like it's best archetype specific, but it's just a real good Beant value commander. And yeah, no, there's not much to say, where it's one of those things where it's like Eldraine is like very generic and will just kind of be kind of like a Beant good stuff deck, but having just generic good stuff commander I think is really nice for players who just want to like, who maybe don't find a lane for their deck, but you know what, they put together a good Eldraine deck, and Eldraine will provide a good kind of focal point to kind of like keep the card advantage and value engine going. And yeah, no, it's, you're not doing anything like outside of like getting specific like some specific like combos and stuff like randomly throughout the draft. It's not gonna be like a full powered Eldraine like you get in EDH, but should be perfectly fine. Corvold, Fey Curse King, which is 2 in Jund for 4/4 with flying. And whenever he enters battlefield or attacks, sacrifice another permanent. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1 counter on him and draw a card. Sacrifice is one of those things where it's like, on the lid, it's kind of a parasitic mechanic, these sacrifice payoffs, just because it's like, oh, you need things to sacrifice, and obviously it wants specific pieces to make sacrifice work. But the thing is that sacrifice is a theme you see throughout Magic, so it's very easy to have sacrifice shells within like your deck. Many things just incidentally sacrifice themselves, and Corvold also just he has both the sacrifice payoff and a sacrifice engine built into one, which is real solid. So Corvold I think is another one where it's just like, obviously, yeah, like all the Brawl precons, they're going to be very good commanders for Commander Cube because they're made for multiplayer play. And finally, we have Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale, which is 3 red, white, and black for 5/5 with Vigilance and Menace. And whenever a creature you control attacks, you may draw a card and you lose 1 life. Equipment you control have equipped Knight 0. Now, it's very easy to look at this and be like, oh, this is a Knight commander? But really, at the end of the day, for Commander Cube, what Sir Gwyn really is an equipment commander for Mardu equipment. Because, notably, it's an equipped creature you control attacks, not an equipped Knight. And, like I said, like, you're not likely to be playing a tribal deck in Commander Cube for most cubes. But really, kind of just ignore the fact that it says, oh, this is like a Knight tribal, and consider that last line just being, you can equip equipment to Sir Gwyn for free. And so it's just like, okay, all of a sudden she becomes just like a decent, like, equipment and Voltron commander. And granted, equipment is one of those things where it's like, you do want more support in your cube. To like get a lot of good equipment, you do have to kind of go out of your way and make sure you have them. And there's plenty of ways to do that. Like, you don't need necessarily a full sword cycle to really make equipment work in your cube. There are many, like, more budget options to really make equipment work. I mean, that's also a video I've been planning for some time, kind of talking about, like, these packages of cards to include, like, budget packages to, like, okay, make equipment work in your cube. But yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's treat her as a Voltron commander and don't get tripped off by the fact that she came in a Knight precon, because at the end of the day, she doesn't super benefit Knights all that much. She's like fine leading some Knights, but really at the end of the day, she's an equipment commander more than anything else. And I believe that is all the commanders we have. So going into it, we're just gonna go talk about like my top cards from the set I think are great for Commander Cube to look into. And first we have a few honorable mentions. First we have Spinning Wheel, which I just want to mention because it is another 3-mana rock that taps for any color. These are fantastic to include in the clue because ramp is a Morn commander. They are not restricted by color, but they generate every color. And all 3 of those things are fantastic. Herald's Like Banner, at the same time, is also real solid for that. Same purpose. And obviously Commander's Arcane Signet is very good. But these are just real nice just because they go into every deck, unlike things like Lockets and Glue Stones, which like want to be in very specific decks instead of the colors, where it's any deck can pick up a Spinning Wheel and be happy with it. Likewise, there's also Midnight Clock, which I'm just mentioning here because like it's a rock, so it isn't anything special. But it's a cool one that like kind of staples off like a blue effect on blue's mana rock, which is like something that blue doesn't really get because they don't usually get fancy mana rocks on their own. And finally, I just want to mention Murderous Rider because I don't include it in here because Murderous Rider isn't anything special. Like, it's just Hero's Downfall, typical 2 creature, but it's good, and you should include it if you have one. It's also like over $10, but it's not exciting. But it's also one of those things where it's like, hey, look, it's very efficient removal and very efficient Planeswalker removal, notably too. Yeah, it's good. And actually going into kind of a top 10 deal. First we have Circle of Loyalty, which is, again, one of those ones that like it looks kind of like a Knight tribal card, but really isn't. It's a 6-mana artifact that costs 1 less for each Knight you control. Honestly, this effect is like with the amount of ramp you're running commander and stuff like that, this effect is fine even with without getting any cost reductions. But it gives creatures control +1/+1. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, create a 2/2 white knight with vigilance, and pay 4 and tap it to make a 2/2 white knight with vigilance. Where at the end of the day, this is kind of more of a legendary tribal card, and generally it's like Commander Cubes are running lots of legendary creatures in general, so legendary tribal is one of those archetypes that's kind of easy to put together. Notably, I will say a word of warning towards including legendary tribal in your cube and like encouraging things like Sisay Weatherlight Captain, Kethis, well, Captain Sisay, and cards like this is that you don't want to overdo it because you don't want someone drafting Legendary Tribal at every draft, because they will suck up the other legendaries that other people might want to play, and the other people in the table might be stuck in a situation where they're just not getting past legendaries when they want to find a cool commander for that they want to be playing with. So do keep that in mind, and make sure that it's like, if you have legendary tribal cards in your cube, make sure that you do have over critical mass, like well over critical mass of legendary creatures for your players to play with, just so you don't run into that situation. Also, I should notably that this top 10, I have not ordered these. These are just 10 cards that I think are worth most looking at. And next we have Witch's Vengeance, which is 1 black for sorcery that choose a creature type, and creatures of that type get -3/-3 until end of turn. Like, this is one of those ones where it's like, okay, tribal isn't really a thing in Commander Cube, why is this here? Where it's, A, black wraths are far and few between. Like, yes, there are a few notable ones, but generally it's like your black doesn't get that many, and you want to include as many as you can in a cube. And while not a proper wrath, this will often be an X for 1. Okay, all cards are like an X for 1 by definition, but like X greater than 1 for 1. But yeah, no, it's because you can hit, then you can hit like a lot of your opponent's stuff. And really, when you can get a good play with it, from a play experience point of view, it feels really good when you can maneuver and be like, yes, Witch's Vengeance, like, was clear like the board of like, I don't know, like plants after your opponent played like a Venturous Zendikar or something, and just like really like get there and just be like, okay, yes, that is value. So yeah. Next up, the infamous Fires of Invention from Standard, which is 3 in a red for enchantment. You may cast spells only during your turn, and you may cast no more than 2 spells each turn. You may cast spells of CMC cost greater than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying their mana costs. This is one of those ones where it's like, this is like a wacky enchantment people will see and be like, I want to play with this. I want to build kind of a deck that, not necessarily building around it, but could take advantage of this if including in their deck, where it's like, I want lots of activated abilities because I'm not having to use my mana. It's also nice because if you're playing Fires of Vengeance in Commander, after your turn's done, because you can't do anything on other people's turns, you can go get a snack. Okay, that's not entirely true. You can still get attacked and activate abilities and stuff, but you're not going to waste other people's turns, and it's one of those things where it could be very interesting. Also, it's like, for red, it's kind of a way for them to ramp in a way, where they're essentially kind of getting twice their mana every turn. 3 times if you have things to spend your activated abilities on. So it has that cool thing where it's just like, it's one of those ones that's, I would almost be more hesitant if it wasn't as prevalent in Standard and people didn't know how it worked, because it can be kind of confusing to be like, oh, how do I use Fires of Invention? Like, this is a weird do-nothing enchantment. It might be a big thing, but because it is being so used in Standard and people are kind of familiar with how it works, it can definitely be more, its complexity is kind of mitigated that way. And it becomes more of like, ooh, Fires of Invention. I want to build like something cool in Commander Cube with Fires of Invention, not just in Standard. Next we have Keeper of Fables, which is 3 red, green for a 4/5 cat. This is good because it's a cat, and cats are fantastic. Next card. But notably, it's whenever 1 or more non-human creatures you control deals combat damage to a player, it includes itself, draw a card. Also, it's like, green is generally not bad at card advantage in Commander, but the thing is that most of the green good card advantage cards are like the same card advantage cards, and it can be hard to kind of reach that critical mass of like good green card advantage in a Commander Cube, and Keeper of Fables is a real solid one. And also, unlike like Eldraine Limited, where it's like you can only draw 1 card per turn, Keeper of Fables, yes, it's 1 or more creatures deals combat to a player, but it tracks players separately. So if you are able to hit 2 different players in the same turn, you draw 2 cards, not just 1. So yeah, no, Keeper of Fables is just like, it's a nice card advantage kitty for green. And also it's one of those things where it's like, more and more I'm kind of keeping in mind like budget for a lot of these. Where things like Fires, yes, Fires is not super budget right now. But like Keeper of Fables, it's a quarter, like at most. And it's actually probably a fantastic inclusion to include in the cube. Okay, now this one isn't super like budget necessarily, but Ambercleave, 4 red for a flash equipment that gives +1/+1 and it's double strike and trample, and also equips when you're battlefield and it costs less based on tank creatures. I include this here just because it's just like, it is a fantastic equipment to, if you're trying to make that equipment archetype work, like if you want to like bring up that so you can include Sir Gwyn or something like that. But yeah, no, just a fantastic equipment. And yeah, it's not the cheapest card right now because it's like played in Gruul aggro. Not that Gruul aggro is super popular anymore, but it's played in some decks and right now. It's not the cheapest card. But that said, it's still cheaper than getting a Sword of Light and Shadow. Granted, it's not. Okay, why did I say Light and Shadow? Like, of all the swords, I name Light and Shadow. Okay, it's not a Fire and Ice or a Feast and Famine. And while not as good as those cards, it does still pack a real punch for them, for those equipment decks. And that like giving things double strike, not many equipments give double strike, like unless you're like going for like a Fire Shrieker or something. And even that's like kind of eh. Return of the Wild Speaker, which is a 4 green for an instant. Draw cards equal to the number of creates power among non-human creatures control, or non-human creatures get +3/+3 until end of turn. Again, kind of like the getting green some card advantage that, yeah, there's many effects kind of like this. It's kind of like Rishkar's expertise. But also just having that overall effect is like, at the same time, it's also real solid for like token decks and stuff like that. And it can just close out a game if it needs to. And if not, you're just going to draw off some cards. And that's real good. And also, it's an instant. A lot of these effects are sorcery speed. And the fact that it's an instant is just real nice as well. So, just both those things. And also, it's like, again, even though it's rare, it's like, it's a very cheap card that's like very easy to include in as kind of like a part of your green card advantage suite. Honestly, I think is a fantastic card for Boros, which is commonly just an overlooked card, color, like just famously like underpowered color combination in Commander. Is Outlaw's Merriment, which is 4 mana for enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose one at random. Create a red and white creature token with those characteristics. A 3/1 warrior of trample and haste, a 2/1 human cleric with lifelink and haste, and a 1/2 human rogue with haste and has, whenever this creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to any target. And granted, it doesn't get around the card advantage problems that Boros has. But one thing it does get around is sure it doesn't give card advantage, but it is kind of like a symbol of a legion where it has this continuous board presence where it will just continue accruing value, and it's like, yeah, it's not drawing cards, each of those creatures isn't really equivalent to a card, but most Boros decks do want to be just like kind of like getting in there, and over the time it will accrue at least several cards worth of value over several turns, and it is kind of there. It's just like, it's just real solid in that way. And the fact that also gives the tokens haste as well, so it's like they can act immediately, is also real nice. So, I think it's fantastic. It's also fantastic if you're doing something like Mardu Aristocrats. But yeah, no. Also very good. Also, again, very cheap. So it's very budget friendly for just a fantastic card for Boros. Next up we have Witch's Oven. 1 mana artifact, infamous for baking cats. But you get to sacrifice a creature to make a food token. And if it's a big creature, you make 2 food tokens. But this is mostly here as kind of like, in terms of like recent like good sack outlets, it's one of the cheapest ones you can get like money wise. That isn't on a creature, which isn't always the best option to have it on a creature because you want to resilient things like board wipes and stuff. I mean, it's not an altar. You can still only sacrifice 1 creature a turn. Most decks don't really care about the food that much, but if you're just looking for some more budget sack outlet options, Witch's Oven is real solid. Yeah, no, not much to say. It's just a good Zac outlet. Crashing Drawbridge, as our second to last one. 2-mana 0/4, you can tap it to give creatures control haste until end of turn. It is one of the best ways to, in colorless, to give all your creatures haste on a budget. It's just, many decks, like many non-red decks, are just happy to have this, just feel like, have these haste enablers, because it's like, you can only run so many boots in your deck, and this is just like a nice like group like thing for these big plays, because it's like a lot of cards, like, you, most of the time when you're like, okay, having a big turn, like set a bunch of creatures and hopefully win the game, you don't want to have to wait a whole turn cycle. You want to act immediately, and haste enablers are very important in Commander. And yeah, no, it's a common, it'll cost you a dime at most, and it's a colorless commander, it's a colorless thing that can go into any deck. So yeah, no, Crashing Drawbridge, fantastic. And finally we have Fae of Wishes, because, I don't know, I have a thing for wish effects in Commander Cube, because it's something you can't do under the core Commander rules, because you do have a wish board in Commander Cube. You have your sideboard of everything you didn't draft. Also notably, those cards aren't in your deck. You can wish for cards that aren't in your commander's color identity, where if you have like some mana rocks and computers in the color, you can just grab another like cards that are outside your color identity, and it's just this cool thing. Also, awesome Magali art. Not that that's important, but it is. Yeah, no, just Fae of Wishes, real solid, and I like this thing. And like, yeah, it's not like a Masterized Inquisition would grab anything, but non-creature is broad enough, and most of the time you're wanting to generally kind of like grab things like answers to threats and stuff of your wishes and stuff too. So I adore Fae of Wishes. So yeah. And with that, I think that about wraps up my set review for Throne of Eldraine for Commander Cube. But you know, it's like, I think there's some cool things, like in terms of like outside of the actual how do you say that? Brawl Precons. In terms of like new commander offerings, not the greatest. And like overall, it's just like most of the good cards for Commander Cube were just kind of like, okay, we've seen this effect before, and it's a new take on that effect. So it's like, overall, I gotta say the set is very medium for Commander Cube, outside of like a few things. But that said, for things that we have seen before, there are many, many good new budget options for those kind of effects. And I'm all about that. I think that's real solid inclusion, an important thing to have. So yeah. Now let me hear your thoughts. I know Commander Cube stuff is extremely niche, but I know I like it and I like talking about it. And I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving for those of you in the US. And it's Christmas season. Ooh, I'm so excited. I probably could do like a Christmas up my set a bit. Yeah, actually do some work on my set to make it not look terrible. But yeah. Well, I will talk to you all later. And yeah, hope you have a wonderful night with wonderful dreams. And as always, may your story smile upon you.